Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Look, Wrestling 101, classes in session. Pay attention to the teachings, that's from Andrew and Derek. I mean, these guys making a killing with no competition. Dynamic duo better than the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys. Everybody make some noise, mess with them, you get destroyed. They cannot be beat, take a seat. Watch them do they thing on the MIC. Face defeat, they cannot be seen like JC. Oh my goodness, it's a killing spree.
You're listening to Wrestling IQ 101 with Derek and Andrew.
Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Wrestling IQ 101. I'm Andrew alongside Derek.
Yep.
And you can listen to Wrestling IQ 101 right here on YouTube or by searching Wrestling IQ 101 on iTunes, and you'll see all of our past episodes and even some new ones. And if you follow us on social media, it's at Wrestling IQ 101. That's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And today we are sitting with the Baltimore Beast, Mason Martin. How's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh man, I'm doing good. We just saw each other just a few weeks ago at Titan Championship Wrestling, and what an impressive night that was for you.
Yeah, it was a good night for the show. Ran smooth. It was great. It was a really good night, and I got called out by Justin Credible, which doesn't happen very often, but it happened. So that was great.
Yeah, man. I mean, you gotta definitely feel like, you're doing something right and see that as, kind of like a compliment when, a legend in wrestling, ECW, WWE, he calls you out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. It's always a good feeling when someone of that status wants to get in the ring with you and perform with you. It's always an honor, and it's an exciting feeling, So
Sure.
It was definitely one of the high points of that night. It was great.
Sure. I mean, he has such a pedigree in ECW, of course, being part of the notorious XFactor. Are you ready for that challenge?
I'm getting there. I am preparing slowly but surely.
Mm-hmm.
I have been hovering the hardcore scene lately. So I'm trying to get familiar with his ground, but I hope he prepares because he's going to have to get familiar with my ground as well. It's not going to be a one-sided show, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And for Justin himself too, it's you gotta look at this from a different point of view. This isn't like Justin Credible from days ago. This is Justin Credible who he has a mission, he has a goal now, he has something to prove. He wants to prove that he still belongs in wrestling. So you're gonna have to go a little bit harder than normal if you're gonna keep up with him, man.
Yeah, at first I was really honored that he wanted me to be his opponent, to make a statement in that way that he still belongs. But after realizing it, to be honest, anybody who steps in my way, whether you're Justin Credible or not, you're a name, you're not a name, it doesn't matter to me. You're still going to get beat into the dirt either way. So that little that bit of bliss was great for that night, but going forward, it's not going to be an easy road for him. I don't plan it to be. So
Sure.
I plan on taking his spotlight and making it my own.
Sure.
I'm going to be the guy that put Justin Credible out.
Wow. That's strong words. I mean, you're going to have to go to Titan Championship Wrestling to see that match for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this, because, you had some familiarity with some other legends in the hardcore field, like Kevin Sullivan. I mean, how was it getting in the ring with him?
All right, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of a background, just so people don't think that the current Baltimore Beast was the one who stepped in the ring with Kevin Sullivan, because that was not the case. So when I wrestled Kevin Sullivan, I was 17 years old. I'm 20 now, so that was quite a bit ago. I was in my first year of wrestling, and I'm going to be completely honest, I was petrified. because everybody knows Kevin Sullivan as this ass-kicking machine, someone you do not mess with. I was terrified. Getting in the ring with someone like that was not only, number one, terrifying, but it was also extremely exciting. So as I was crapping my pants, I was also very giddy and fanboyish. And when I first met Mr. Sullivan, it was in Delaware. I was wrestling for a promotion called PPW in Delaware. And I remember I actually wasn't scheduled to wrestle him. I was actually a last-minute fill-in. I got called an hour before the show and asked if I would like to come up and wrestle Mr. Sullivan in a tag match. And, of course, it's one of those opportunities you don't say no to. So I hurried up, got in the car, and raced down to Delaware from Baltimore. And it was one of those nights that, like, you just don't forget. It's one you hold close to your heart. But I also learned never to underestimate your opponent, which I didn't underestimate him to begin with. But I'll be honest, he whipped my ass. Sorry if we're not supposed to curse. I apologize.
Yeah, it's all right.
He whipped me. He whipped me good. He put a whooping on a young kid who was very new to the wrestling world.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, he whooped me, but he also taught me a lot in just that one night. So I'm forever grateful to say that I got to wrestle a legend such as Kevin Sullivan, especially at such a young age. It was a great experience.
Yeah, man, definitely, for sure. And can you tell us what was like your mindset in being in the business at 17 versus now at 20?
Well, I get asked that a lot, but I'm never on a platform to say it to an audience. So that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it. So at 17, I started training at 15. Mm-hmm. I remember I got, the little graduation from 8th grade to high school or whatever. Yeah. I took all of like the party money that I got from my family and put it straight into wrestling school. Every single cent of it went into wrestling school, and I trained since I was 15 years old until I was 17. And I think being so young when I first got into the business, I'm still incredibly young, so, but being so young had its ups and its downs. It had the advantages and the disadvantages. One of the advantages is you get to learn, and you're young, and your body can withstand a lot of punishment. So you really don't have to take a break as if you were, a lot older. It's you can take the wear and tear, but also being so young, I had the mindset of I was a star. I was like 17 years old. I was still in high school when I was wrestling. I would play my varsity football games on Friday and wrestle on Saturday, and like you couldn't tell me I wasn't a superstar. And it kind of came back to bite me. I got labeled with an attitude problem, unfortunately. But I'm glad that it happened so early, so I could get a grip on it and change the way I am. Because now I can honestly say I'm very humble about everything that I'm fortunate to get in wrestling. Any booking, any promoter who feels comfortable enough to put me on a show, I'm extremely grateful for them. But being young and getting into the business it's rough, because a lot of guys, you'll have a lot of guys who want to help you and go out of their way to help you, and then you have a lot of guys who kind of just snuff you because they think it's just a phase you're going through. Yeah. Oh, he's just a 17-year-old kid, and he's not going to stick around for long. And I've had many people tell me they didn't think I was going to stick around. But wrestling is definitely something that I've always wanted to do. And as long as I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it, I'm always going to do it. Yeah. But it was a very unique experience. And it also taught me a lot of life lessons, that you learn throughout life. And it taught me quick. Like, You know, wrestling matured me. Put it that way. Wrestling matured me quickly. And I can't. And it's been a positive part of my life, and it's helped me get through a lot. So, in all, I'm grateful that I got in at such a young age, because I have the advantage of youth, but also it taught me how to mature myself and conduct myself in a professional manner, and that's something you need in life in general. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to break in at such a young age.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's where I was going to head with, my next point was that, when we met you, like, you were very respectful, very courteous. I wouldn't believe that you were 20 years old unless you told me, so I was like, so you could definitely see, the changes for sure, and the professionalism and, the respect that you show for sure.
I appreciate that. I try to treat everybody with the same respect that I would like in return, and sometimes I don't get it in return. But when I say that I'm grateful for everything that's given to me, I honestly mean it. Like, I was super excited all day to be able to call in and do this. It's a great opportunity to get my name out there, and for you guys to let me on, I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to me.
No, we're grateful you reached out to us and really wanted to pursue this, because we're hearing some great stories as it is. But we have so much more to go, because there's a lot of things that you've done. You mentioned football. I noticed that you used to wear number 90. Why number 90?
So I'm a very story-oriented person. So I like to give everybody a background story. Sorry if I'm talking too much.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Entertaining us.
But when I first started playing football, at I think I was 11 years old, and my favorite player was Terrell Suggs from the Baltimore Ravens. So, of course, my first number was 55.
Mm-hmm.
So we fast forward, we get to high school. I'm a lot bigger now. I was a big boy. And all of the jerseys were sized according to number. It went from 99 down. So 99 was the 3XL, and down was all the smaller sizes. And I just didn't picture myself wearing 99, so I squeezed into a 2XL 90 jersey. and I kind of just, after that, colleges recruited me and stuff, so I just kept the number. And 90 became my number, and there was really no significance other than I was too fat to fit 55.
Oh, man.
But, I just took it, and, that was my number, and that's what people associated me with. So that was the significance of that.
You made it
big kid.
Yeah. No, man, you should have went with the 99, Warren Sapp, man. Come on, man.
I did, but then, see, I was in a complicated area, okay? Uh-huh. The 99 was like a dress on me, but the 90
I got you.
was slim fitting, and, you always got to look the part when you play football. You can't wear a dress when you play football.
Definitely.
So I took 90, and I tried to convince my coach to let me wear the extra large 55, and he had no part of it. He said that you are going to wear number 90, and that's what stuck. Even through changing high schools, I went to Digital Harbor for 2 years, and then I finished off at Patapsco for 2 years, and that was just the number I kept. So, yeah.
Nice, man. Very nice.
Are you still thinking about? Are you still a Ravens fan, or are you thinking about becoming a Jet fan or something like that? Or?
I don't ever see myself becoming a Jets fan.
No?
I don't think.
I don't see anybody becoming a Jets fan.
You're wrestling up here in Jersey, New York's not.
But I don't have the patience to be a Jets fan.
Yeah, no.
I grew up a Baltimore fan, and then I also grew up a Carolina Panthers fan because a lot of my family is in Carolina. Mm-hmm. So those are the two teams I stick with. But of course, I'm always going to support Baltimore. So.
Yeah, man.
I don't foresee it.
Did you like other sports other than football and wrestling?
No, because I've always been a rough kind of person. I've always wanted to lay my hands on someone else, and the only way I could do that was through sports, and football was that sport. I did boxing for a couple years,
Oh, yeah. Nice.
but I let boxing go to pursue wrestling. So between boxing and football and wrestling, that's really the only three sports that I would say that really keeps my attention or keeps me entertained.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Derek and I know a few people we like knocked out, so we'll tell you off air.
Yeah, please. No. So for the Super Bowl coming up, who's your pick to win it all? Kansas City or San Fran?
I've been going back and forth on this a lot. But I think San Francisco is going to take it. I would like to see the Chiefs win because, they're on the up and coming. They've been working hard for the past 2 years. But
Yeah.
I think San Francisco is going to take it.
Yeah, man. KC better get it while Tom Brady's down, because if those guys bounce back, it's going to suck for the AFC for sure.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to go with San Francisco. It's the home of Rice-A-Roni,
Oh, boy.
right? San Francisco treat. But, it's pretty interesting. You mentioned before, you alluded to the fact that you've been doing hardcore matches. You've been part of H2O. How was that experience?
H2O is like literally stepping into another world.
Yeah.
Because you go from places like Titan. Shout out to Billy Fetsky and Charles Delutri. I love them both dearly. But they are a family-oriented show, and I love the audience there. I love putting on family-friendly matches. But when you step into Matt Tremont's venue under Matt Tremont's banner, you are there to fight. You are there to hurt someone. You are there to get hurt. And it was like stepping into another world, but it was a great feeling because I've always looked up to Matt Tremont as a performer. Because I was always a deathmatch fan. I always enjoyed watching them. And stepping into that world and having a guy like Matt Tremont take me under his wing and, have enough faith in me to put me in matches such as death matches and putting me on his shows. I'm actually going to be wrestling for him this weekend, Subterranean Violence on Fight TV. This episode will be out a week after this has happened, but you can still go back on Fight TV and rewatch it. But yeah, it was like stepping into another world, but it was definitely a world I felt comfortable in.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. And at this point, do you have like one that you prefer? Do you prefer like the deathmatch style? Do you prefer, like the family oriented wrestling?
I don't say that I prefer. I wouldn't say I prefer either or. I hold them both close to me because I learned wrestling through family-friendly shows. I learned how to wrestle. I learned how to interact with crowds that way. But it's also good to know that you can show up to a show and beat someone and not have to worry about scaring someone in the front row because they're there to see that. They're there to see somebody get their head beat in.
Yeah.
And it's always I kind of had to hold back with the family shows and can't be as aggressive and say what I want. But there I can say and do whatever I want. But also in that same aspect, I think being at a family show, it drives me. It helps me a lot. Seeing kids wear my T-shirts and, kids enjoying themselves and wanting autographs and stuff, that's humbling to me. And it really puts into perspective why I do what I do. Not only do I love wrestling, but I love entertaining them. And, of course, the adults appreciate it. They're into it, but it's different to see a kid's face light up when they see you come through the curtain than it is to see a grown man screaming at you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is a different animal. I went to Subterranean. I I don't remember the number, but it was Mac and Maria Manic who opened up the show. I mean, what a crazy place that was. And Derek and I were there before it was H2O, when it was OTW, and that was a lot calmer.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different beast. But you've also been part of other mainstays here in independent wrestling. CCW, part of their Dojo Wars.
Yep.
You know, it's pretty incredible that these places are looking at you, and reputable places like H2O and CCW and standalone wrestling, and of course now TCW being the newest one. But yeah, you've been making your mark. But I had a question. We've had other wrestlers who've wrestled barefoot here. How was that experience for you?
So I wrestled barefoot for a year and a half. It first started because I wanted to add to the look of a beast. You know, you see a wild man in the woods. He's not going to be wearing wrestling boots. So it added another look, and it made me unique to my competitors for the most part. But wrestling barefoot, I think a lot of guys look at it and cringe, but it's really not that bad. It only gets bad considering where you wrestle and what kind of match you wrestle in. The reason I decided to switch back into boots is because I stepped on a piece of glass and I could barely walk during the match because every time I walked, I felt the glass going deeper. So I decided to switch back to boots. But other than that, like it's a lot easier to get dressed and undressed. You know, you just put your tights on and you walk out. But when you put yourself in matches such as death matches and stuff like that, you wanna make sure your feet are okay, because you need your feet for everyday life. You gotta walk.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So that was really the only thing that made me stop being barefoot, was that being barefoot was fun. It was unique, and I enjoyed it. So yeah.
Well, in your case, you also need them for kicking ass, because we see you in that ring, and you need both legs for that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Probably a smart decision there.
Yeah. And we kind of like glazed over this, but you know, you said you started training at 15. What are you thinking at 15 that just says, "Hey, I want to go to a wrestling school"? And like, how was that experience being a 15-year-old, you know, starting out in wrestling?
Wrestling was something I've always been attached to. You know, some people get into it as kids and they kind of grow out of it and come back to it. It was just something that it just, once I saw what it was and I watched it, it was something that just stuck with me, and it still sticks with me. I watch wrestling religiously, so I knew when I was old enough that I was going to train. It didn't matter that, you know, I had to train for like 3 years or however long. I just knew when I was old enough and somebody would accept me into their school, that I was doing that. Because I tried to sign up for school when I was 12.
Oh man, wow.
The promoter looked at me. He didn't think I was 12. He thought I was 15 because I was such a big kid. But I told him I was 12, and he was like, "Yeah, you're a little too young." And you know, that kind of like lit a fire under me to be like, you know, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna make a name for myself. And so it was good to get rejected at first, because being so young, you know, it seemed as if somebody tore my dreams away. But it stuck in the back of my head, and then as soon as I got old enough, I saved up the money and I went straight into it.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah. Who were the people you were watching that got you into it?
So I watched WWE, and I also was really big into watching independent wrestling as well. As far as like television wise, I know I'm super young, but I loved watching Vader.
Yeah.
Vader and Mick Foley both were like, you know, mesmerizing to me, and and I watched them religiously. And this was before like the network had came out, so I would just YouTube their matches all the time and watch Vader and Mick Foley and stuff like that. And then on the independent scene, I watched guys like Sami Callihan and Matt Tremont. Matt Tremont was when I started to get older, I got into the deathmatch side of wrestling, and Matt Tremont always stuck out to me. It was just mesmerizing to watch a guy like him because he put everything into every match. There was not one night that he would walk in a building and take the night off. He put everything into it, and it was just mesmerizing to watch someone give that much of their body and their effort into wrestling and for the fans, and it was just captivating to me. But yeah, it's a mix of Vader, Mick Foley, Sami Callihan, and Matt Tremont. Those are the four that really like, wow, this is something I want to do. Like, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know, when it comes to, you know, who you are, did you see yourself as kind of like combining those four into creating who you were, or was there somebody else that you kind of modeled yourself after?
I think that when I had first broke in, I really didn't have a sense on who I was as a performer. So, which I don't think really a lot of people do. I think a lot of people that just comes with time and comes naturally. So what I would do is I would take moves and, you know, I would learn them in training and then replicate them. And I was trained by a cruiserweight. So a lot of the stuff that I learned a lot of lucha stuff when I was first coming in. And I just remember just wanting to do a lot of lucha stuff, but I was bigger than everybody else, you know. I was, you know, I couldn't do suicide dives and Hurricane Ranas and stuff like I could do in training. I couldn't do that on shows with people who didn't know me because they would look at me like I had three eyes. They're like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. I promise. You know, being young, I'm like trying to convince them. So in the beginning, I kind of tried to replicate a little bit from each guy that I looked up to, but as time went on, I learned what works for me and what gets a reaction out of the crowd, and I kind of just came into my own. I'm still coming into my own. I'm still learning. So that's a good question. When you first get in, you kind of replicate what you see, and then, well, for me, I can't speak for everybody else. I kind of replicated what I saw, and then as I continued to work on shows and work different places, I learned what works for me, and I accommodated accordingly.
Yeah. You've been wrestling out here for a little while now. You know, coming from Baltimore, it might be a little bit of a hard trip, right? I mean, long hours on the road. Do you have any fun stories, or who do you travel with? I mean, is there anything you could tell us?
Yeah, I actually have a pretty funny story. So my first match ever was in West Virginia. It was in the mountains of West Virginia. It was like so far out, I don't even remember what part of West Virginia it was in. Mm-hmm. All I know is it was 5 hours from my house. 5 hours one way and 5 hours back. And for the trip, we only had one driver. And we were coming back from the show. It was like 3 a.m, and he started getting tunnel vision. And he was like, "Does anybody know how to drive?" Of course, me being young and dumb, I was like, "Well, I've driven around a couple parking lots. I can probably drive us home." So I tell him I can drive. Pull over. He pulls over. I get in the driver's seat, shut the door, put the seatbelt on, and take off. Well, the person who was driving me didn't tell me he was getting out to use the bathroom. He didn't tell me he was going to go pee. Well, I got in and I just took off. Well, I left the owner and driver of the car on the side of the highway.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
With the back door wide open.
Oh man, wow.
And the only reason I knew this and was able to stop and turn around was because one of the guys had woken up and was like, yeah, he's not in the car. You need to stop. So I slam on the brakes, and the owner of the car is like sprinting down the highway. It's like pitch black. It's 3:30 in the morning, and he's like sprinting down the highway screaming. And I slam on the brakes, and you would think he would be mad or he'd be yelling. He just calmly walked to the driver side door and said, "It's okay, I can drive home." And
he woke him up.
and he calmly got in the driving seat and he drove home.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Oh man, that is great.
That is pretty great. That's crazy. That's it. So just going with that too. How you've been all over the place. Are there any new places that you're eyeing that you want to go to, or that you can see yourself fitting into?
One of the places that comes straight to mind is Combat Zone Wrestling. That was a place that I watched religiously on the independent scene. Obviously talking about Matt Tremont and Callahan, they were both two mainstays at the Combat Zone at the time I was watching it. So I would love to work for Combat Zone Wrestling. So that is one of the places that really would be like awesome for me, and it would just be a great feeling to work there. So that's one of the places that I'm eyeing up. But of course, you have to get experience in death matches before you can just go to the top of the food chain, and Combat Zone Wrestling is the top of the food chain for deathmatch wrestling in America. So I want to get some more experience in and more time under, being mentored by Tremont and guys like Stockade and Jeff Cannonball. Those three guys are the three guys who mentor me the most at H2O. So I'm going to try and give that more time before I try and pursue it to the fullest, because when I go, I want to be at the top of my game. I want to be at my A game. I don't want to be I don't want to go into pursuing that thinking, well, I could have been better. I want to be able to pursue that knowing that I put my all into it, and hopefully it's enough to get me in, because that's definitely a place I want to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and what a fantastic pedigree. I mean, they've been around for like 21 years, 22 years, CCW. So, to get your name mentioned there, where a lot of great people have come from, that'd be great. There's a lot of people out there on the independent scene. Some people you've wrestled, some people that you haven't, and who are some people on that long list that you like to tangle with?
Are we talking in death matches or just in a match in general, or both?
Both. I mean, whatever. That one match that you have that desire for. So if it falls into one of those categories, that'd be cool.
Okay. So we've said his name a lot, and I'll probably say it 110 more times. Yeah. But I want to wrestle Matt Tremont, and I want to wrestle him in a death match. That's definitely one of my I guess you can call dream matches. So that's definitely one. And then as far as just wrestling in general, another guy who comes to mind is Wrecking Ball Legursky.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
He's a big boy, and I would like to get in the ring with him and wrestle. I always want to get in a ring with people who can elevate me and make me better. And I think both of them in both aspects of wrestling can make me a better performer.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I noticed when you get in the ring, you're usually the larger of the two opponents in the ring. Is it hard when you're the smaller guy? Because you were in the ring with Wildman Congo, and not that you were small, but he's a large dude as well. I mean, did you feel like you have to change your style up when you wrestle somebody closer to your height and weight, or?
That's a good question. I don't really change my style up.
Uh-huh.
I kind of just go with the flow and see what works. And, if I pick him up for a power move and I can't get him up, then I guess it's not going to work.
All right.
But I enjoy working guys my size or bigger because it's something that I don't get to do very often. So it's a unique thing for me to get in there with somebody my size, So I enjoy that. I enjoy wrestling, period, but it's always fun to get in the ring with somebody my size or bigger. So, I sometimes I like to get thrown around too.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that one. That's you crazy. Wrecking Ball, he's gonna be at Titan Championship as well coming up soon. So, maybe once you finish up business with Justin Credible, you can set that up, man, and fulfill one of those wishes that you want for the the new year.
Yeah. I think it can come to fruition. I hope it does. Yeah. He's a great performer. I always enjoy watching his work. So hopefully Billy Fetsky hears this and my wish will be granted eventually.
Yeah, we got you, man. Don't worry, we'll put the word in for you. We got you, man.
Can you slam him? Can you be like Andre and slam, or Big John Studd rather?
So I believe I can slam anybody because this past weekend I picked someone up who was 450 pounds and body slammed him.
Oh man!
So I think I can slam anybody. Yeah. How I'm going to do it or which way I'm going to do it, I don't know. But when the opportunity presents itself, it'll happen. It'll happen.
You gotta have somebody put up some money so you could win that like how $1 Million Man put up that money.
The body slam challenge.
Yeah, like Yokozuna, right? Like.
Yeah.
Oh man, that'd be awesome to see you slam him.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I saw you you recently put a post up that you were booked all the way until May. Booked full until May. Does that does that just make you feel like the hard work is paying off and people are seeing you in a good light? Because it's like it's January. That's already almost halfway through the year, and you're already set up for half of the year already.
Yeah, it was a great feeling to be contacted by different promotions wanting to bring me in, some new and also returning to some as well. I think as a wrestler, we all try to stay as busy as possible, and it's a really good feeling to know that like I'll be able to wrestle and do what I'm passionate about every weekend until May. And who's to say by April I'm not booked until July? It's an ever going process, but it was a great feeling because this is the first year that's ever happened. I've never had a semi full schedule. Well, it is full. I have no weekends off. My career goal is to go in every year and be booked for the entire year at the beginning of the year, but that's going to take some time. But being booked full until May was a big achievement for me.
Yeah, it looks like you're on your way, which is really exciting. And I mean, if you haven't gotten out the chance to see the Baltimore Beast, you're not going to want to miss him because you are a freight train, and you just, I mean, we saw you. I've seen you at SWF and TCW, and you're just bulldozing through some of these opponents here. It's quite sight to see. So, it's crazy to think, 17 years old, getting started and maturing so fast, like you said. At the end of the day, are you looking at WWE? Are you looking at AEW or Impact? I mean, where would you prefer to go if you had your choice?
If I had my pick and it would happen tomorrow, it would probably be Impact Wrestling.
Wow, nice.
Because it has such a unique group of guys and girls. It's such a unique roster, and they also are able to fulfill independent commitments as well, and that's always something that I want to be able to do because I love independent wrestling. But if I could sign a contract and make a living doing this off of a contract, then I would probably sign with Impact.
Nice.
Wow, that's awesome,
Definitely wouldn't be a bad pick for sure. You said you're still a fan of wrestling. Do you keep up with, everything that's going on today? Are you able to watch all the, vast programs that we have nowadays?
As far as TV, like Raw and AEW and stuff, I'm not really able to keep up with that as much. But when I say I watch wrestling, I watch the network and I watch a lot of older stuff, and I watch Powerbomb TV and stuff like that. So I get my fill of wrestling, but I don't really keep up with the weekly shows that are on TV.
Got you. And how do you feel about where wrestling is at today, as from an independent standpoint?
I think that independent wrestling is at an all-time high. This is, even being a fan, this is like the most popularity it's had since I've been a fan or a wrestler. This is like, right now is like the time of professional wrestling. And it hasn't really been that way since, like in the 70s and the 80s when the territories, well, not the 80s, but like the territory days, I should say. That's when I really wouldn't call that independent wrestling, but like, everybody had a job and everybody was performing. And then when, big companies took over, the territories kind of died out. But now it's I wouldn't say it's in a resurgence, but now everybody has a place to wrestle, whether that be, you do it as a hobby or you're trying to do it as a career. I think professional wrestling is at an all-time high, and I'm extremely excited to just see where it goes from here, because I believe it's going to go higher, bigger, and better. It's not going to die out again. So,
yeah, man, I think you're right. I think you have a lot of star power on the independent scene that's keeping it afloat, even if a lot of them have jumped to NXT or AEW. So it just looks like it's continuing to grow, and you're part of that flow. I mean, and we can see, you can see the progression. I mean, you were barely booked, and now you have half the year full of shows. So it's kind of impressive. But there was one match I wanted to talk to you about, because this guy is the hitman for hire, Mr. Grimm. I mean, he comes out, is pretty eerie. He has the body bag. He's ready to body bag his opponents. And, how was it getting in the ring with him, knowing that, this guy's, he's a little creepy?
Wrestling Mr. Grimm was always a learning experience. It was always I knew every time I'd stepped in the ring with him, I was going to walk away better. And if there was something I could do better during the match, he would never hesitate from telling me. He would, I should have did this or I should have did that. So when I wrestled Mr. Grimm, I always knew that, number one, it was going to be a good match. And number two, I was going to walk away from it learning something new to put into a future match to make it better. So I've wrestled Mr. Grimm. I believe I've wrestled him 3 times, and then me and him, I don't think there's any footage of this, but me and him actually tagged together against a team in Georgia, and we wrestled them in a steel cage match.
Oh,
so, me and Mr. Grimm are pretty familiar with each other. But he was another guy who took me under his wing and helped me out a lot and taught me. So I'm forever grateful for that. And anytime I wrestle him, I know I'm going to walk away with it, knowing something new and knowing what I need to work on, and not just walk away with, oh, that was great, and then shake hands and walk away. No, he's going to give you a little piece of homework to take with you every time.
Yeah,
That's cool.
That's definitely cool. And another part of wrestling that's a big part of wrestling, are the fans. And someone that's become a big fan for you is Val. And I've seen him at the show at TCW over the last time we were there. Can you just talk about what that means to you and how just that relationship blossomed between you two?
I met Val. Actually, when I first met Val was the first time I ever worked for SWF, and Billy Fetsky and Rob Fury, when they were both promoting shows together. That was the first time I had ever worked for them. I did a tryout with them a couple months prior, and my first show with them was his benefit show to help him with his medical expenses. And it was just one of those instant friendships. And Val went from being a complete stranger to being someone that I hold near and dear to my heart. And he motivates me. That he's a very strong kid. He motivates me. Because even when there's days that I don't want to push myself or I'm feeling iffy on the day, I look to Val as motivation, and he motivates me to get through the hardships of wrestling and day-to-day life. He's really a motivation for me. I don't consider him just a fan. I consider him family, because that's one of the I guess fans that have become like family to me, and it's just it's a strong bond. It's a unique one, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And every time I get to see him and perform in front of him and his family, it really brightens my day. So
yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Definitely, wrestling brings us together for sure. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish a lot more people had that mentality, because you really it's an awesome thing that you do, and I'm sure he really appreciates that, and his family too, that they get to see you wrestle. And hey, it's a good relationship.
Yep.
That's awesome, man.
Definitely. Alex, I'll ask my final question as we wrap up. For you, just starting this year up, you're already halfway booked for the year. What are your goals that you want to finish by heading into 2021? What do you want to have accomplished this year?
My biggest goal is to get my name out there on a bigger platform. I want to be known not only locally, but my goals are to be known internationally. Whether that happens this year, next year, or 5 years from now, that is my biggest goal, and that is my goal for the year, is to make a mark and get noticed and be known on an international level. So I want wrestling to be my job, and in order for it to be my job, I need to be known not only locally but internationally, and that's a very big goal of mine. And I've been working towards it, and I'm going to continue to work towards it. So I've had the same goal since I started. So that's definitely the goal, is to be known internationally, and so that's the goal.
Now, Mason, where can people get you on social media if they want to connect with you, follow you, and see where this journey takes you for the next year?
I know some people would advise against this, but you can add my Facebook, Mason Martin. I also have Instagram at Baltimore _ Beast 20, and then I just reconnected on Twitter, and you can follow me at Mason7199. Yeah, it's kind of a dumb handle, but I've had it since before I started wrestling. But yeah, so you can connect with me on all three of those.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man. And we really want to thank you for taking out the time answering our questions. I hope the fans got an in-depth look of about who the man is behind the Beast of Baltimore. But yeah, I mean, you are the Baltimore Beast, and yeah, you have the opportunity now to see him when he comes to your town. And for us, this has been Wrestling IQ 101. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wrestling IQ 101. You can listen to us right here on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button. You can check out some of our past interviews and some of the ones coming up. And also, if you type in Wrestling IQ 101 in iTunes, you'll find all of our past episodes and even some new ones. And we'll see you guys really soon.
Peace.